Bing Crosby documentary. The Strage and Sad Ending. Bing Crosby was the single most successful performer in the history of light entertainment. If he had done no more than appear in the 79 movies he made, 55 with top billing, then it would be considered a decent effort, a worthwhile career, but he achieved so much more than that. When he joined the Paul Whiteman Orchestra as resident singer in 1926, he became the first vocalist ever signed to an orchestra. After that, the extent of his success and his dominance of the recording and broadcasting media during his lifetime was truly extraordinary. For instance, he has made more number-one hit records than any other artist, 38. In comparison, the Beatles had 24 and Elvis Presley 18. He made more studio-based recordings than any other singer in history, about 400 more than Frank Sinatra. His recording of White Christmas was the most popular recording ever, making the American pop charts 20 times, every year but one between 1942 and 1962. Bing's radio show during the Second World War regularly attracted an audience in excess of 50 million, an extraordinary number. His secondary career, as a movie actor, was also staggeringly successful. In one year alone, 1946, 3 of the 5 top-grossing pictures, The Bells of St. Mary's, Blue Skies and Road to Utopia, starred Bing Crosby. In fact, 29 of his 79 movies made the top 10 of the highest-grossing pictures in the year they were made. Bing is ranked as the third most popular film actor of all time, in terms of tickets sold for his movies, behind Clark Gable and John Wayne. He received 3 Academy Award nominations for Best Actor and won the Oscar once, for Going My Way in 1944. He had 14 songs nominated for Academy Awards and his songs won 4 awards, more than any other star. In addition to the above, he found the time and had the foresight to wholeheartedly embrace new technology and was at the forefront of many inventions and new developments in music recording and broadcasting. His backing helped to ensure the survival of some of the most important companies in the development of the American entertainment industry, including Paramount Pictures, Decca Records, and ABC. In short, Bing Crosby was a phenomenon, a sensational pop culture rarity. He entertained us and he helped to change the world we live in today. He was born Harry Lillis Crosby in Tacoma, Washington, on May 3, 1903, the fourth of 7 children, 5 boys and 2 girls. His father, also called Harry, was a brewery bookkeeper and the family moved when young Harry was 3 years old to Spokane, Washington. He got his nickname when he was about 6 years old. He took a liking to a feature in a local paper called the Bingville Bugle, so much so that he became known as Bingo. As he got older, the last O was dropped and the nickname stayed with him for life. As a boy, he was interested in sports, particularly swimming, and at school he developed an interest in acting, appearing in several school plays, and in music, he played the drums. He went on, at his parents' request, to study law at Gonzaga, a private Roman Catholic university in Spokane, but left before graduating, as his musical interests took over. Starting when he was 14, Crosby began working his summers at the Auditorium Theater at Spokane. He was able to watch, firsthand, some of the top performers of the day, including Al Jolson, who made a big impression on the young Crosby. He began to consider music as a career, and in 1923, as a drummer, he joined a local dance band called the Musicalators, performing at local clubs and school dances. His singing talent became obvious immediately, and when the band broke up, he and the group leader, Harry Rinker, joined forces as a duo, with Bing singing and Harry on the piano. In 1925 they moved to Los Angeles to find work, and whilst performing at the Metropolitan Theater there, they were seen by bandleader Paul Whiteman, who took them on and began featuring them in his nightclub act. Whiteman teamed Bing and Harry with a songwriter and pianist called Harry Barris, and named them the Rhythm Boys. He gave them a contract and they became essentially a jazz vocal group, touring with the Whiteman Orchestra. Bing was already attracting attention for his rich baritone voice and his relaxed singing style, and he began recording with some of Whiteman's top musicians, including Bix Beiderbecke, Tommy Dorsey, Hoagy Carmichael and Duke Ellington. Songwriters, too, heard about his exciting talent and began writing songs for him. Bing began to stand out as the star of the Rhythm Boys and soon had his first #1 hit with the Whiteman Orchestra, a jazzy interpretation of "O.L. Man River" in 1928. He made his movie debut, still as a member of the Rhythm Boys, in King of Jazz and 2+4s, both in 1930. He left the orchestra soon afterwards, possibly pushed out by Whiteman because of his youthful overindulgence in alcohol. The other members of the Rhythm Boys were increasingly marginalized as Crosby's fame grew, and he soon left them to start his solo career. Bing worked the club and theater circuit, and his reputation as a singer grew rapidly. He was the first singer to use the microphone, not just as means of amplification, but as a method of communicating emotion and subtleties not possible with the voice alone. His new, conversational singing style became known as crooning. During the 1930s, he gradually rose to the pinnacle of the entertainment world in movies, radio and live entertainment. Bing's movie career took off with a series of comedy shorts for producer Mack Sennett, including I Surrender Dear in 1931 and Sing, Bing, Sing in 1933. Also in 1931, Bing made his solo radio debut with a 15-minute weekly radio show which gave him national fame, with hits like Just One More Chance and I Found a $1 Million Baby, in a 5 and 10 cent store. It was an exciting time for Crosby as he also made his feature film debut in 1932 in Paramount's highly successful The Big Broadcast, also starring Burns and Allen and the Mills Brothers, and this developed into a 20-year connection with the Hollywood studio. In 1934 he signed a lucrative long-term contract with Decca Records, and it became apparent that there was a new, formidable force in the world of popular music. Bing Crosby in a few years had become the most popular singer in America. In 1936 he took over the radio program Kraft Music Hall, replacing his former employer, Paul Whiteman. He changed its formula to a regular variety show and its popularity shot up. Crosby remained with the show for the next 10 years. Bing used his fame to help boost troop morale during the Second World War. He toured, both in America and in Europe, and he made a large number of V-discs, special records produced for the use of American military personnel overseas. His radio show during the war attracted an astonishing regular audience of 50 million listeners, and he sold record numbers of war bonds. In addition, he read propaganda broadcasts in German intended for the German forces, receiving the nickname Der Bingle, which came to be used by all his fans. By the war's end he was #1 on an army poll as the person who had done most to boost forces' morale. Bing had a good war. As well as the morale-boosting efforts, he boosted his own fame and career considerably. He began the road musical comedy movies with Bob Hope with Road to Singapore in 1940, Road to Zanzibar in 1941 and Road to Morocco in 1942. Beginning a series of 7 films which ended with Road to Hong Kong in 1962. The series became one of the most famous and long-lasting in movie history, based primarily on the comic sparring between Hope and Crosby. The films have kept their freshness and are still funny today. During their solo appearances on radio and television, Crosby and Hope continued the comic criticism of each other, and they appeared together many times on stage, during their lives, as well as making cameo appearances in other films. Bing introduced White Christmas in a radio broadcast on Christmas Day, 1941, and sang it again the following year in the movie Holiday Inn. It has proved to be Crosby's most popular record and has been repeatedly re-released by Decca. It stayed at #1 in the charts for 11 weeks in 1941, and has charted since then another 16 times, including #1 again in 1945 and 1947. Until Elton John's Candle in the Wind tribute single to Princess Diana, it was the best-selling single of all time. Bing's movie career continued unabated. As well as continuing the road movies with Bob Hope, he won an Academy Award in 1944 for his performance as Father Amelie in Leo McCarey's Going My Way, and for the remainder of the decade he rode the crest of a wave. In 1945 he again played Father Amelie in The Bells of St. Mary's and was nominated again for the Best Actor Oscar, this time losing out to Ray Milland in The Lost Weekend. As a box office movie star he held the number 1 spot for 5 years in a row between 1944 and 1948, was number 2 in 1949, number 3 in 1950, number 5 in 1951, number 4 in 1952, number 5 in 1953, and number 8 in 1954. Other popular movies he made during this period include A Yankee in King Arthur's Court with Rhonda Fleming in 1949, White Christmas and the Country Girl in 1954 and the wonderful musical High Society in 1956. Bing also dominated the singles records charts each year from his first recording, Muddy Water in 1927, until rock and roll began to make its impact in the mid-1950s. The statistics are incredible. 383 of his singles entered the general pop charts. After his first number 1 hit in 1928, a jazzed-up rendition of O.L. Man River, he had a further 40 number 1 records. For 23 years between 1931 and 1954 he had at least one single in the charts. As well as White Christmas, his most successful single, some of the biggest hits of the 1930s and 40s were his, such as Brother, Can You Spare a Dime? In 1932, You're Getting to Be a Habit with Me, in 1933, Pennies from Heaven in 1936, Moonlight Becomes You in 1942 and Now Is the Hour in 1948. After 1950 Crosby became more the grand old man of popular music and he concentrated on creating albums rather than singles and on collaborating with other artists and big-name bands. He had great success with albums such as Bing Sings Whilst Bregman Swings in 1956, Bing with a Beat in 1957, Bing and Satchmo in 1960 and I Wish You a Merry Christmas in 1962. From the mid-1950s Bing began to reduce his movie output and worked more and more in television in shows such as The Jack Benny Show in 1954, Lux Video Theater in 1955, and The Perry Como Show in 1960. He also appeared with his family each Christmas in his own show which became an integral part of the festive season for many Americans. In the 1960s he was often on the small screen, either in his own shows or guesting on shows of his friends such as Frank Sinatra, Bob Hope, Dinah Shore and Joey Bishop. He also starred in his own series, The Bing Crosby Show from 1964-65. In his personal life, Bing married twice. His first wife was actress Dixie Lee, who was actually more famous than Crosby when they married in 1930. She gave up her career to raise their 4 sons and died of ovarian cancer in 1952. For a few years Bing lived the life of a rich bachelor and his name was linked to many of Hollywood's most glamorous women including Grace Kelly, his co-star in High Society in 1956, Joan Caulfield, Pat Sheehan and Inger Stevens. In 1957 he married actress Kathryn Grant and the couple had 2 sons and a daughter. Despite increasing ill health, Crosby remained active into the 1970s, still making albums and playing golf regularly. Sadly, he died from a heart attack on October 14, 1977 in Madrid, Spain, after a round of golf. His secret. Of course, above all, Bing had a great voice. His beautiful, mellow, seemingly effortless baritone made him stand out from the crowd from the start. He also got his timing right. He entered show business at just the right moment to take advantage of the technological breakthroughs that were being made. He used the microphone as an extension of his voice and he sounded like the guy next door. His sense of humor and his modest demeanor added to his attraction. We all loved Bing Crosby. We still do. He was a unique entertainer who is a part of all our memories. Rest in peace Bing Crosby. Goodbye legend.